My name is Murilo, so that's me. I'm going to be talking about data science teams. So maybe I'll already get started on what we're going to talk about today, right? So this is the agenda. First, we're going to do an intro. So you are here in case I already lost you, but hopefully you'll stay with me till the end, okay? We're going to talk about a bit of data science in the wild. How many people here are in data science? Okay, some hands, no? Some people just shy, okay. Maybe who here works with notebooks? Okay, I see the same hands plus a couple. Who here loves notebooks? Okay, okay. And who hates notebooks? There's always a couple. Well, I see some people that raise their hands all the time, right? They're just like, oh, okay, so it's a love-hate relationship, I guess. Okay, but I'm going to talk a bit about data science in the wild, right? I'm also going to introduce myself and whatnot. I'm going to talk a bit about Jupyter notebooks, so not actually how it works, like the server and everything, more the structure, right? So what it is, the role in data science. So I see a lot of people here are already in data science, so you probably have a good idea what I'm going to talk about. Some issues with notebooks, right? So maybe that's another good question. Who had beefs with notebooks in the past, even if you love them? Like something that was like, man, this is so annoying. Anyone? No? Okay, oh, there. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, me. Okay, cool, okay. All right, there we go. Okay, cool. So I'm going to talk about some issues with notebooks, right? Nothing's perfect in this world, right? We're going to talk about some solutions, and I just see here that the numbering started again, so I apologize. Some solutions, then I'm going to talk about Databooks. Woo! That's me, by the way. That's a Slack emoji that someone created. It wasn't me. I'm not that, okay. But this is a package that actually I built to try to alleviate some of the issues that I have with notebooks, okay? We're going to do a demo because it is a tool, right? And if I'm presenting a tool, I feel like I should at least show a bit, right? Otherwise, I don't have faith in my own thing. I'm going to talk a bit about what it does and how it works. Cool? Are we ready? We're excited? Yeah? Can I get a yes? Can I get a hell yeah? Can I get a woohoo? Okay, I appreciate whoever's stuck with me to the end. I appreciate it, but okay, cool. All right, so who am I, right? So my name is Murilo. Like I said, this is my contact information. I'm actually from Brazil. A lot of people say, okay, Brazil. That's why you have this weird name. Yeah, I'm from Brazil, but I actually live in Belgium. I have a background in mechanical engineering, and I have a master's in artificial intelligence, so I did that after my bachelor's, right? I have some cloud certifications, so with GCP for data and machine learning engineer, AWS for machine learning, HashiCorp, that's Terraform, that infrastructure as code, Astronomer, that's Airflow, right? So I have a couple certifications there, and with Snowflake, right? So I have done some things. I'm a coach and a tech lead at the AI business unit at Dataroots. So Dataroots, we're a consultancy company, right? So we help our clients deliver AI solutions or data engineering solutions or whatever they need. So I'm a coach and AI tech lead at the AI unit, and I'm also a machine learning engineer at Dataroots. So that's what I do. Cool? So machine learning engineer, sometimes I feel like there's a bit confusion maybe, right? Like, oh, data science, machine learning, data engineering, what is it, right? So the way I see my role when I go to my clients is to help put ideas into production, right? So you have some ideas, you build something, you love it, and now it's time to release it to the world. And that's what I'm there to help with. So what are things that I see when I'm going to the clients, right? Sometimes, well, that's a big one actually, like there's a lot of friction usually between data science and data engineering. Has anyone experienced this as well, or no? Am I the only one? No? Okay, the people that raise their hand, they're like, oh yeah, I know about that. So there's a lot of friction there too, because I also see that the backgrounds are different, right? Like data engineering, most of the times is more software engineering based, and data science is more mathematical, right? And then sometimes the practices that you want in one, you don't want in the other. Data engineering, you want reproducibility. Data science, a lot of times you're doing experimentation, right? So sometimes they don't meet eye to eye. But more interestingly, one thing I see too is friction between data scientists, right? And why do I say that? Is because data scientists love notebooks, right? It's a match made in heaven, you know, notebooks and data science. Like one doesn't go without the other, and we're gonna see some examples later on. So, in case you're not familiar with Jupyter notebooks, anyone here not familiar with notebooks? Don't be shy. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay. So I don't know if he's live, but okay. I appreciate the interactivity. But notebooks, they're like interactive programming environment, right? So you have something running, you have the kernel running. So that means that you can run little bits of code and you can see the outputs for each of that bit, right? So a lot of the times if you want to see an output, if you want to check the data real quick, you want to run a function, you can do that in a notebook as well. It runs in the browser. Well, there are like Visual Studio Code extensions and whatnot, but the Jupyter Lab, right, runs on the browser. It is stateful, right? So if you have a variable in memory, it will stay there. The format is this IPyNB. We're going to go a bit more in depth later on. But basically, it's just JSON. So if we open one up, and we are going to do it later, it's just JSON. So don't be alarmed. It's just JSON, okay? Kernels, right? So it's the runtime that you have. Right here, we're going to be talking basically just Python. But just know that you don't need just Python, right? You can do R, you can do Scala, if you have PySpark, you have all these things. You can also do that in a Jupyter Notebook environment. This is how they look. This is how it looks, right? So again, you have some bits of code and you can actually output some plots and everything, right? So, and I think this makes it a really nice environment for data scientists, especially when you have a lot of data, you don't know what's in your data, right? So you want to do some exploratory analysis, you want to do some plots, you want to do this, you want to do that. So you can do all that in a notebook. So I see why it's a good match, right? Where do you see notebooks? Well, Kaggle. Anyone knows Kaggle? Yeah, okay, yeah. So it's a big like competition platform, right? And a lot of the times people have demos and whatnot, so you use Kaggle a lot. You see a lot of notebooks. People, they figure out you can do books with Jupyter Notebooks. So there's like the Jupyter book thing, right? Like even O'Reilly books, they were made, some of them were made with Jupyter. FastAI, anyone knows FastAI? Okay, yeah. So FastAI, for those who don't know, is they have some courses as well, and they use a lot of the Jupyter Notebooks there, right? So you have the step-by-step stuff, and you can try stuff. The big three cloud providers, right? So this is Vertex AI, this is Google. We have Azure ML, so that's Azure, and Amazon SageMaker, right? So all three of them, they have notebook environments there in their AI solutions, right? Actually, SageMaker, a lot of the stuff that they have as tooling, you go through the notebook, right? So they actually expanded the Jupyter Lab interface to do some stuff, okay. Google Colab, anyone knows Colab? Yeah, yeah, cool. So Google Colab is also a really nice way, right? If you just started programming, you just go on the drive, Google Colab, you have a Python running. So it's really cool. In Papermill, this one is a bit of a hipster, I think, and it's very controversial, but people, who knows here about Papermill? No? No one? Okay. So Papermill, and I'm not going to go into the merit of Papermill, but the idea of Papermill is to put notebooks in production, right? So I can already say that personally, I'm not in favor of that, but I mean, I heard success stories, right? So who am I to say anything, right? So I heard that big companies have had success with it. But again, not going to get into that argument because I feel like that's a whole other talk, right? All right, so as you can imagine, Jupyter Notebooks is not just a bed of roses, right? Some people don't like notebooks. Anyone knows who this guy is? Joel Gruss? No? No one? So he's I see one person there, okay. So he's actually, I think, for Allen Institute, so he's a big name in AI, right? And he's a very bold man as well. He went to JupyterCon, so that's the Jupyter Lab conference, right? Like the Jupyter conference, and then he went and did a talk on I don't like notebooks, which is actually a really nice talk, right? I still like notebooks, but I still think that the ideas that he presents there are very valid, right? So worth a check. Anyone knows who, so this is Nicholas Gelders. Anyone knows who that person is? No? Yeah, I'll be surprised if you do, because that's just my data engineer colleague. So if anyone knew, I was like, oh, sure. That's okay. But why am I bringing him up? Well, let's first introduce Nico, right? So Nico, he's, like I said, a data engineer at Dataroots. He loves long cycles. He loves Visual Studio Code. He's also a man of strong opinions. I actually met a Python advocate for Microsoft. So his job was to promote VS Code, and he wasn't as opinionated as Nico was about Visual Studio Code. So that's how strong he was. He loves it, really. I feel like if I say too many times, he'll pop up out of nowhere. It's like, oh, Visual Studio Code. Okay. But Nico hates notebooks, right? So he's the perfect candidate for me. If I can convince Nico to use notebooks, then I think I can convince most people, okay? And I have to admit, myself, I had issues with notebooks, mainly in this Jupyter and Git integration. Anyone else had these issues? No? Yeah, you had some issues, yeah, okay. We're gonna dive it a bit deeper, but before we do that, some solutions to these problems, right? Like I wasn't the first one to encounter this. So the first solution is pretty straightforward, is just don't use notebooks. Some people are like, okay, there's a problem, just stay away from it. Okay, maybe it works, right? Who am I to say? Jupytext, familiar, anyone? Jupytext? Yeah, okay, I see one hand there. So Jupytext is like a way that you can sync notebooks and scripts. So if you change something on a notebook, it would change the script. If you change the script, it would change the notebook, right? So basically, you just commit the scripts, and you don't commit notebooks that have all the metadata. That's another solution that works for a lot of people. NB Clean, so that's not so popular, I would say. I mean, does anyone know? Maybe I should. Oh, you know NB Clean, okay. Yeah, you know. You want to come here to the talk? Okay. So yeah, it's like so you can remove metadata. So it's like a CLI tool. You can have some pre-commit hooks installed. I never actually used this. I actually started my own project before I learned about this, but then afterwards I was introduced to it. So it's just to remove some metadata, right? NB Dime or NB Deem, I don't know. This is another popular one. Hands? Anyone? No? You know, okay. So it's to help diffing and merging notebooks, right? So if you're gonna merge something and you know there's a notebook there, you know it's a pain in the ass, right? So you can actually use the NB Dime for merging, or if you want to diff as well, you can also use that tool for diffing stuff, right? So it's a really nice idea. I still think it could have been improved, and that's kind of what I'm gonna get to later on. And also NB Dev. Anyone knows the NB Dev? It became more popular lately. Anyone knows? No? So NB Dev is, people from FastAI actually, they like notebooks, and they like it so much that they think that notebooks can be a good source for building Python packages. So they go from the notebooks, they create scripts that are synced to the notebooks, and the notebooks also become the documentation for that package. So they actually take the notebook and they render that as a static page. So it has some good ideas, I must admit. I also think it does a lot, and I think by doing a lot, you kind of have to be opinionated, right? Like you can't be on the fence and do everything. I didn't like all the opinions that they had, right? But I like the ideas. I didn't like the implementation so much. So, and you can probably guess where I'm going with this, Databooks. Yay! Okay, anyone knows about Databooks? Okay, yeah, I was surprised. Eh? But okay, maybe there is an overlap between what Databooks does, and I'm going to get to in the next slide, and all these tools. But I would just mention as well, because NBDev became a bit more popular because, oh, I don't know why this is happening. It's not the first time. There was this post in August 25th, so not too long ago. Jeremy Howard, he's the guy from FastAI, so big name. Jupyter Git problem now solved. So they have a whole bunch of like walk through how this works. And a lot of the ideas are the same, but the implementation is still different, right? So without further ado, and just doing a lot, what is Databooks? Databooks is a CLI tool. So it's not like a framework, it's not a template, it's nothing, it's just a CLI tool. It's for sharing and caring about notebooks. So if you love notebooks and you want to share with people, that's your tool for you. So what we do actually, it's like I try to implement the Jupyter protocol with Pydantic as well. So if you actually want to use that to manipulate notebooks, you can also do that, right? I try to make it as malleable as possible. It is configurable. There are 5 commands right now, and the last one actually, this is a very recent addition, right? So you guys I'm gonna go in more detail later. So you can remove metadata, you can fix Git conflicts, you can assert some metadata from notebooks, you can show rich notebooks in the terminal and the rich diffs, okay? And also there are some pre-commit hooks available, right? So you can also do that. So, I mean, in pre-commit hooks, if you don't know, there's a really popular Python package to create hooks, to manage hooks, to install hooks. That is this pre-commit one. If you have this, you just need a YAML file in your repo, and then you can have pre-commit hooks, which I think is, I actually quite like this pattern. Cool? Everyone's with me? Yeah? Yeah? Everyone's excited still? Oh, there you go. I love it. Okay, so, yeah, all this, again, keep in mind, all this is to make Nico happy. Oh, yeah. Okay. Cool? All right, so now is the demo time. And live demos are always a bit, you know, but there are no audio. So I think we're going to be fine on the audio part, okay? But just saying. So also, I will also set the expectations that this is actually a PR that is open. And if you see here, when was this? 6 hours ago. So it wasn't that long, but so actually I did a talk similar to this in PyCon Japan, and I wanted to do something a bit different, right? I don't want to just do the same thing over and over, and this is something that I wanted to do for today. So I put a lot of effort in, and I did this. What I'm going to show here, so I have this is installed as well. This is the version from the PR, so this is not even released yet, but as soon as I merge this, it's going to be available. So please be forgiving with me if there's some hiccups along the way, okay? But I think it will work well. I tried this before, but you never know, right? Okay, cool. So what is Databooks, right? So let's just, can everyone see the screen clearly, by the way? Yeah? Bigger, smaller, too bigger? So maybe for this maybe? This? Or maybe this, me. Is this okay? Is this okay for everyone? Huh? People in the back? Maybe people in the back? Or I see some recording there. It's like, oh, okay. Woo, let's hope this works, huh? Everybody. Okay. All right, so let's see. What do we have here, right? We have a Git repo, right? So again, we need a repo to have these issues. We have a notebooks directory, and we have this demo.py. This is this here. Pretty standard, right? So if I also look here in the tags, the actual header has a cell tag, right? So it's the yay tag. It's the only that has this, okay? Nothing else has. So I already showed the help command. Right, so you see here all the commands that we have here. We have all the 5 ones that I shared before. So before we go, very quickly, let's have a look into what a notebook is. And again, like I said, it's just JSON, right? So if I actually open this, and this is just visualizing what is there, you see you have a cells property that is a list. So here is going to have all the cells. Each cell has some metadata. So here I have the yay tags, but you also have some other things like an ID tag. Every cell has an ID tag. Sometimes the metadata is empty. You have different cell types. And also, you have some notebook metadata, which is what I'm trying to show here at the bottom. So here you see that notebook has some metadata. You have the kernel name here. You have the language version, et cetera, et cetera. And that means that if I share this notebook with anyone, and you open, and you have a different kernel or a different kernel name, this will already be changed. So there's a lot of metadata that can be nice, but it can also cause a lot of issues, right, when you're trying to commit stuff. Like, do you care that the kernel name is this? Really? Do you want to track these changes? There we go. I didn't want to do it either, right? I was like, oh, okay. And that's why I did the research of the tools that we had before. But this is where Databooks Meta comes in, right? And this is for removing cell metadata or notebook metadata. So this is where the demo starts, okay? So let's hope this works. So if I do this, I pass a path, right? And then it's asking because I'm going to override the contents, right? So just saying, are you sure you want to do this? And then if I do this, yes, okay. So before we go, let's look at it again. So you see first, these properties doesn't matter where they are, right? It's just JSON, so I put them in the beginning. I keep this format because you need this for Jupyter, but the metadata, so all the stuff about the kernel information is gone. The cell tags as well. So for example, remember here, this is gone, the IDs are gone. So just by doing that, you trim it down to what is you really want to keep in your notebook. Right? So again, if I refresh this, what you're going to see, another thing that is gone is the execution count, right? So if I refresh this, what you're going to see is that the execution count is going to be gone if everything works, right? So everything I'm saying here is if everything works. If it doesn't work, don't throw rocks at me or anything, okay? This happens too. Okay, let's see. See? Okay, wow, right? No? Okay. Am I the only one that is? Okay. Maybe just means it's the rush, right? Okay. Cool. So let's say, and also maybe just to, again, there are no more cell tags, right? So again, you remove all that. But again, it's configurable, right? So let's say you want to remove the outputs. Maybe, I mean, I do think that outputs are valuable for notebooks, especially if you're doing data science. Maybe forget to set a random seed, and that will cause the notebook to not be deterministic. So I think it's important to keep the outputs. But maybe you don't want it. So you can still do Databook, and then you can pass in some things here, some flags, right? And then if I go here and I refresh this, the output will be gone. So, and then, yeah, wow, right? I know. When I was like, oh man, this is not going to work. So, oh, shit, okay, good. Okay, so yeah, so this is first thing, right? So, let me check again my notes. Yeah. Sometimes, let's see, just going back to the state that we had before. Sometimes, even if you do all this, you can still have notebook issues, right? Like sometimes the actual content changes, right? It's not just metadata. So if I do here, for example, git merge, and I'm going to merge a suspicious branch, right? It's, okay, there's a conflict, right? I should have known that, right? Who names this? Anyways, so if I do here and I do git status, you see that indeed there is a conflict here, right? If I try to show what the notebook contents are, you see that this is the git diff that we know and love. However, who doesn't love this is Jupyter, right? Because as soon as we do this, this is not a valid JSON anymore. And I would be remiss to not mention that most of the stuff here you don't really care about, right? So you see a lot of stuff here like ID changes, like I don't care about that. But sometimes you may care, right? Sometimes you may have something like this, like an output that actually changes, right? So sometimes you cannot get away from it. So what you can do is run databooks fix and then demo. Again, drum roll. No, well, okay. I forgot to refresh this, but if I refresh this, Jupyter complains that it's not JSON anymore, right? But now I fixed it, now it should be JSON again. So I refresh this, what do we see? Wow. No? Okay. So you see here, and now it's like you can go like, yeah, hold on. Okay, I see that the output here changed, but everything else is the same. So there's something clearly wrong. And I'll say, look again, because here we have a yay tag, and here we don't. So actually, we're actually comparing the whole cell with all the metadata. And again, you can choose to exclude that before, right? But by default, we'll compare everything that is there. Cool? Let's see what's next. Okay. I'm gonna git merge abort. Cool. Again, refresh. This is how it should be in the beginning. Now, cell tags, sometimes you want cell, so I don't really want cell tags, right? But sometimes you may want to actually specify a cell tag. You want to specify things. So instead of just removing any metadata that you have, you may actually want to say, I actually want this metadata, and I want it to be like this. So, and again, I believe, and I'm not an expert because I never used this, but I believe Papermill works like this. It actually says there's like a variables parameter or something that is a cell tag that you need, and for that to work, you need that cell tag or environment variables. But anyways, so this is where databooks assert comes in, right? And assert is just because I wanted to kind of make it sound like the Python assert, right? So basically, you're asserting metadata from a notebook. So how does this work? So the default way, let's say, is like you can pass an expression, and then let's say you want cell of notebook cells to be less than, I don't know, 18. Then demo, pass the notebook, right? So then what it would do is say, okay, is this pass? And you can see here by the green arrow that this is exit code 0, meaning that this is all good. Now, if I do something like, I don't know, 1, you see that this exit code is actually 1, so there's an error here. Meaning, it's like flake8 or black or anything like that, right? You run it, if it's good, it will tell you it's good. If it's not good, then you probably need to do something, right? But you probably don't want to run this all the time, and this is where this precommit config comes in. So that's the precommit hooks, right? So there is a precommit hook that you can do that. So basically, every time you run the commit, it will run this check for you, right? Before I get into that, this is probably not something super useful, right? But this is just an expression that you can create your own. But I also took the liberty of creating some recipes, right? And some things that you can do that I think could be very valuable. So the one that I think is super valuable is to, for example, this SECExec. And this is well, I also have the documentation here, right? So this is also there. You can also check it out. All the recipes you can check. So the SECExec, for example, is the same thing as passing this as a string. But basically what it's doing is making sure that the execution order of the code cells are in order, right? So one issue with notebooks is that I can do something like this, and I can commit it, and then, of course, this is a stupid example, but you get the idea, right? Like, if you don't respect the order of execution, you can commit a notebook that no one can reproduce. Or maybe if you execute something twice, or if you delete a cell, right? So what you can do here is say, databooks assert, pass a recipe, this is SECExec. Oh, I need to pass a path, sorry. And then you will see here, oh, sorry, I didn't save this. Let's try again, huh? Yeah, there we go. So there was an issue, right? So basically it's saying the order of execution of the cells is not in order. So I'm not going to let you, and again, if you want to do this with precommit, right? So I can do git add demo, git commit should fail, and it fails. So basically, if you have these precommit hooks installed, I'm telling you, you're not going to be able to commit anything until you actually have everything working in order, right? So again, I'm going to put this back where it was. Okay, I'm going to make some changes here, just so I have something different. And then if I do the same thing, should not fail. Boom, it works, right? So basically some guardrails that you can pass so you can make sure or try to make sure that your notebooks are reproducible. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah, okay. Everyone still with me? Because sometimes I feel like when I first start talking and trying to code and it's not like, okay, cool. All right, so another thing is, I personally find a bit annoying that if I want to just have a quick look at what's the code, right? Like maybe there's a conflict, or maybe there's this, maybe there's that. I just want to have a quick look, and I have to actually open the browser and do all these things. So with that in mind, I also put the show command, right? So if I can do show demo, and then boom, I have a nice notebook representation in the terminal, right? You see it's the mimicking, right? And you also even have syntax highlighting, so you know it's Python. Cool, right? No? Just me? Okay. All right, tough crowd, okay. So we have this, and also if I'm being honest, when I put this together, it's because I wanted to do something else, actually. But this was kind of in the way, so I just kind of tried to take care of that. What I actually wanted to do is to do diffs in the terminal, right? So there is actually, to be fair, there is a Jupyter extension that you can actually see the Git Dips between two things, but then you need to open the Jupyter browser, right? And sometimes you just want to check something real quick. So with that in mind, and by the way, this is this, if you watch closely, this is the diff command here. So this is the highest anxiety in the whole demo, but let's hope it works. If I do, let's see if I change something here. Right, oh, need to save it. Yeah, so there's something here changed. Again, if I try to check out what's the, oh, sorry. This one is okay because it's a small change, right? But you can imagine rearranging cells and everything, right? If you do Databooks diff demo, boom. See? So you can have like a nice representation of the notebook, and whenever something changes, you have the cells side by side, right? So it tries to be a nicer way to visualize something right before you commit, or maybe there's something. Again, I try to make this as close as possible to the Git diff, so you can compare branches, you can compare all these things. And that's it. So I think this was pretty okay, huh? I think everything worked, no? Stop. You guys are too kind. Stop. Okay, cool. Cool. So, very quickly, let's check how much time I have. Okay, almost run out of time, but it's okay. How does it work? Again, I mentioned I'm working with Pydantic. So actually, Pydantic you probably know from Fast API, from all these things, right? But it's basically just JSON and like parsing JSON and all these things. And since we're reading JSON files, I thought this could be a nice place to start. Everyone knows Pydantic here? Yeah? No? Popular too? Yeah? Okay, a lot of people, okay. And if you don't know, it's pretty nice, it's pretty easy to use, pretty user-friendly, so I'd say go for it. People know Rich. Rich is also pretty popular. Yeah, Rich. So if you probably could have guessed that I'm using Rich to do the rich rendering of the notebooks and everything. Typer is from the same creator of Fast API, so that's to create CLIs. There's Git Python, which is a Python and Git integration. So actually, and I will say as well that whenever I'm fixing diffs or I'm comparing, I'm never actually parsing the JSON. I'm actually going back to the two blobs, the two different blobs, and I'm actually comparing them. So, disclaimer, that the Git diff that you see may not be exactly the same as the diff that I'm showing because diffs are subjective as well, right? And I'm using the standard lib, the diff lib. The last part is the configuration, which is the TOML. So it's well, now in 3.11, you have a TOML lib, so it's built in, but this is starts at 3.7, right? I'm supporting starting from 3.7. So I still have the TOML package to parse the PyProject.toml configuration. And that's kind of how it works, right? So this is the user interface, the user-facing part, this is the Git part, and this is the configuration part. Some roadmaps, some things that I would like to work on, or some things that people told me that I should work on. One is like I think I have a bias towards the CLI, and I never really thought about it, but like some people told me like, look, data scientists, they love the notebook, and they don't want to go to the CLI, so maybe you should do something for support more Jupyter, like as an extension or something. I was like, okay, maybe I should do that. Another thing is, now that we have this diff, and this is probably the next thing that I would work on, is one thing I would like to do is to capture these diffs here, and maybe in a pull request here, you can have a comment that shows this, right? So whenever you want to make a pull request, you can compare what you're going to actually merge and what you have, right? So there are ways that we can actually help with the merging or pull request process, right? and also creating like some GitHub actions to make it easier, right? Because I have some ideas how we can do with open source tools, but it would be nice to have GitHub actions. And this is just a couple, right? I have more ideas as well, but this is what I could think just before this conference, actually. But yeah, I think that's it. There's just one more very important light that is just thank you. But yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for the interactivity. This is how I like, actually. I rather when people like this. I did this similar talk like this in PyCon Japan, and the Japanese culture is very different, right? So I was like trying to make jokes, and they were like, I was like, okay, no, never mind, it's just Python, okay. But I really appreciate it, so I hope you guys enjoyed this talk. I'm also going to be hanging around here for the next days as well. If you guys have any questions, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or anything. This is the documentation website. This is the repo. You can also feel free to give a start, to contribute, to create an issue, ask me questions, tell me that I did everything wrong, whatever it is. I'm all yours. Thank you. Yeah, maybe we can talk later and you can give me more insight because yeah. Cool, thank you. Any other questions? I see one hand here. I see. What? You? What? It's a tough battle, huh?
Let's repeat the question.
Okay, sorry. The question was if I could convince my colleague Nico Gelders, and it's a tough battle. It's a tough battle. I think he's also proud now. You know, it's like, but okay, no, but we'll get there. We'll get there. There's time. Huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus.
Sneaks up on you.
In the demo there, after, okay, maybe, okay if I'm shouting or no?
Yeah.
All right, good. In the demo, after Databooks fixed the merge conflicts, I think the microphone's not needed. In the Jupyter notebook itself, there was like copies of it and it still was quite broken. Does this mean that Git merging complex things not working very well, or am I misunderstanding that?
So I think, let's see. I think it's because of the. Sorry, I cannot type and do. I really admire people that can like program and talk at the same time. But I cannot do it. I think it's because of the cell tags. So it's like it's a big chunk, but that's just because like diff lib, it basically looks at two things and tries to make what makes the most sense to a human. But that's also super subjective, right? Like if you ask 10 different people, what are the differences between this and this? People are probably going to point out different points as well. But let me just. Yeah, so the idea is like because you cannot. So when I had conflicts, what I would do is I would really go in here and I would kind of know that I want the head changes or I want the remote changes, and I would just delete stuff, right? So basically, I would just keep the one that I know that I want, but it's really hard sometimes to really parse and read what is it doing, right? So the idea is just to kind of put it here so you have a nicer understanding of what's happening where. What am I doing? Yeah. So the idea here is like, okay, now you could not open this before because it was in JSON and it was hard to read it to understand what's doing here. Now you have something like this. And also, I can also show this, that if it... It's like, God. Okay. If you see here, like, actually this is a cell, eh? So it's like, it's not like, I'm actually creating a cell here and putting this here, but the idea is that you can actually see this nicely and you can actually choose what you want. And the reason why this diff is big is because this cell has a tag, and this cell does not have a tag. So I'm not going to test this because that's not what I tested before this presentation. But I think if I remove the tag before, the diff would just be this cell, the random cell. And the only reason why this has a diff, this is in the diff, is because it has a different output, because it's random, right? Which makes sense. But if you see something like, I don't know, here, right? This is a nicer diff, right? This cell changed, and in here you had a group of different cells that didn't exist on the other, right? So the reason why this one is bigger is because of the cell tags, which, again, if you're just fixing conflicts, I'm not making assumptions whether you want or not the cell tags, right? You can specify that if you want. And maybe one last thing as well, right, just while we're at it. The PyProject.toml, so that's the configuration, it kind of follows the same that you see in all the tools, right? Like tool.databooks.command, and then you pass the arguments. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it wasn't sure. It looks, now compared to it looks very broken, but I think that in terms of, it renders the merge request nicely in the notebook so that you can actually review stuff.
Yes, 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 indeed. Cool. Any other questions? Any last questions, thoughts, concerns, thank you notes? No, just kidding. No, nothing? Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you for your talk.